Hello and welcome to the Slate Political Gabfest. August 7th, 2025, putting the BS in BLS edition. I'm David Plotz of CityCast in Washington, D.C. I'm joined from New Haven and the New York Times Magazine and Yale University Law School by Emily Bazelon. Hello, Emily.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
And John's on vacation. Thank goodness. He deserves it. But that's okay. You know, this is a secret, Juliet. No one knows this. You're my favorite Gabfest sub-host, Juliet Kayyem of the Kennedy School of Government.
The show is over. It's peaked. It's only downhill. Now I feel like I have to prove it. I have so much fun with y'all. Thank you. I said y'all.
Are you still? You're still at the Kennedy School of Government, right?
I am still there, but physically I am in Rhode Island right now.
Is it the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. School of Government?
It is. It is. We all have to.
No, it's not.
And choking. We it's anti-vaccine.
You're not allowed to brush your teeth anymore.
Exactly. John F. Kennedy School of Government.
Right. No red dye and no vaccines. It's a great place.
This week on the Gabfest, we have a series of like 3 truly terrible topics.
Which is
Trump...
bad because last week this was true also, and people complained to me that it was too depressing. Anyway.
I tried to add a fun one, but was nixed.
Well, we have a really fun Slate Plus topic. Is Trump firing the official in charge of labor statistics bad, terrible, or genuinely catastrophic? Then the redistricting civil war, is that bad, terrible, or genuinely catastrophic? Then Laura Loomer discuss. Plus, we'll have cocktail chatter. You know what we were talking about before we started, just to raise it for listeners? What happened to vocal fry? Like, why
as a complaint?
As a complaint. Why did people used to talk about it all the time and now they don't anymore?
Maybe everyone was just beaten into submission. There were too many women on podcasts and audio, and they just had to, I don't know, accept it or stop listening.
I guess so. Yeah.
I had never heard the word before, so I was like a decade late. But now I will banish it from my repertoire.
Okay. Well, you were not in the podcasting world a decade ago, probably. You were too busy protecting the homeland.
We hadn't discovered that you were exactly
just a guest host.
This episode is brought to you by Planned Parenthood Federation of America. You've seen the headlines. The Trump administration is attacking sexual and reproductive health care. It's the kind of big, urgent topic that deserves more than just cocktail chatter. But Planned Parenthood Federation of America's commitment to care never stops, no matter what. Planned Parenthood health centers are still here, providing compassionate, affordable, and judgment-free care for everyone. Some lawmakers are trying to end abortion access, slash funding people rely on for care, and shut down Planned Parenthood health centers. These attacks only deepen the healthcare crisis they created, putting millions at risk. But here's the truth. Planned Parenthood has been there for over a century because of supporters like you. With your commitment, they can keep defending the care people need, whether it's birth control, cancer screenings, abortion, gender-affirming care, or sex education. Planned Parenthood believes everyone should have the freedom to make decisions about their own bodies, no matter what, and that's something worth fighting for. When freedoms are at risk, what you do during pivotal moments matters most. Join the fight for health and rights by making a gift to support Planned Parenthood at plannedparenthood.org/defend.
Juguemos a Adivina el Precio de Burlington. El regreso escolar significa volver a ahorrar. Traemos jeans para tus niños desde, un momento, solo $11.99. Burlington pasa el examen. ¿Y qué tal las mochilas con personajes? Las tenemos desde $12.99. Burlington lo ha vuelto a hacer. ¿Y los tenis para niños? Marcas de primera y a la última moda desde $11.99. Ya puedes ahorrar. Burlington, marcas, rebajas, wow. Los estilos y selección varían por tienda.
Following the announcement of some pretty dismal job numbers, President Trump fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Erica McIntarfer, a basically career bureaucrat who was a political appointee confirmed by the Senate during the Biden years, 86-8. So Trump and the Trump administration have been destroying and disappearing government data left and right. Just try to find any climate data, except for the data that DOJ is hoovering up to ferret out immigrants. That data they're happy to have, data to identify people. But until this past week, he kept his hands off the crown jewels of American government data, which is economic data. So no longer. Emily, there is scarcely a more profound own goal for destroying the American economy, except maybe destroying scientific research, which they're working on, and driving out immigrants, which they're working on, than destroying the credibility of government data. Why is government data, reliable government data, so important?
Well, I mean, it's how we know what is happening in terms of cause and effect with, jobs and taxes and lately tariffs and all the other economic indicators that we use to judge the health of our economy and explain people's experiences of living here and make sense of it. And what was so bizarre about this move that Trump made was that yes, it was true that the news from this latest jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics wasn't great, but it also wasn't terrible. And what he seemed to really freak out about was that they revised their estimates from the last few months downward, right? So that made it seem as if, okay, maybe there is this downward trend starting. And the accusation was that there was something nefarious and suspicious and incompetent about those revisions. But of course, those revisions are just part of how the BLS works, right? I mean, they send out gazillion surveys. I think it's a huge number. They have hundreds of employees all over the place crunching these numbers. This is not something that the head of the BLS really even is capable of interfering in, which is part of what makes it so important, because we know that it goes through this careful process. And the idea that because they were revising it downward at a moment in which there's some volatility in the economy, so you could imagine that the initial numbers might need revision, it just doesn't make sense. And so it just felt like a big temper tantrum. But I think you're right that it also is part of the cracking of our democracy. And to me, it was just like incredibly unsettling, this news.
Juliet, I would like you to use some of your personal experience. So you were Department of Homeland Security, where I'm sure you guys were constantly barraged with data and had to decide what to release to the public, how to release it, what to say. Were you cooking government data most of the time?
It's really, let's just say it's really hard to cook. Like, it is the number of people involved with something like labor statistics, immigration statistics. One person sitting at the top can't just decide that a 2 is an 8. There's enough checks. And so, but you rely on government data because there once was a time when policy would be informed by that data, that you would determine whether a policy shift was successful or whether the policy status quo needed to change. And that's what Trump is denying through this move. I was surprised by this move because I always thought that the economic thing he would sort of keep sacrosanct. But I realized that it came at a moment when this narrative that they had been strutting about, that these numbers denied them that narrative. Remember, when the tariffs started, every person with an economics PhD was out there saying this is going to slow growth. It's going to hurt consumer confidence. It's going to hurt international confidence. But the numbers were not showing it. So maybe this was an instance in which Trump was smarter than everyone else and decided that everyone would play along with these tariffs and we wouldn't feel it in consumer prices. Well, it turns out that the data was just delayed and that we were seeing the stagnation, lack of consumer confidence. And I want to say, as importantly, lack of foreign investment confidence in what the United States is becoming. Those numbers then appeared this month. He didn't like them because his people have been strutting around on every TV show saying the economists were wrong. And he needed to sort of, I would say, silence that counter narrative to his strutting. I want to say, when you look deep down, what I think what was really forcing this, or numbers are good or bad, was when you look at why were these numbers particularly bad, at least some analysis has it on 2 factors, which are the key to what Trump is trying to do. One is, of course, trade, right? Now the tariffs are now going to be felt in consumer prices. So there's going to be slow ups in the economy, in hiring, in consumer confidence. But the second piece, which no one's talking about, is how the draconian immigration policies, which are the lifeline of his base, are now having an economic impact. The data that is at least being shared now is that America has shed 1.7 million immigrant workers since March, and that we think overall that the enforcement, lack of people wanting to come here, lack of H-1B visas, all that stuff is going to amount to essentially a whole percentage point in lowering the annual GDP growth. So the immigration enforcement stuff isn't just about culture and who gets to be here. It is now having a significant economic effect, and he's stuck with it.
And it's also the inverse economic effect than I think they anticipate, which is that one argument would be, well, great, we've driven 1.7 immigrant workers out of the workforce. That just means there are jobs for Americans now. But what these data suggest is you've driven 1.7 million immigrants out of the workforce, and what you've done is just made the economy smaller, and there are not jobs for people. So it's not that there are now jobs that Americans are going to fill. It's jobs that are going unfilled because there's a loss of confidence in the economy. And it's all
that's the growth. That's the growth factor. I mean, that's what you mean when you say economic growth. It is there fuel being put into the economy? We're taking it out.
It's also disheartening, Emily, that basically the two forces that are driving the economy, there are two areas of growth. One is AI or huge investments in computers, and two is healthcare. Both of which have value. I mean, who doesn't want healthcare? But that's not a recipe for healthy, diverse growth in the long term.
And this certainly not returning to the manufacturing base that Trump has promised his supporters, right? I mean, what we're supposed to get...
Right, manufacturing jobs are down, by the way.
Yeah, what we're supposed to be getting from these tariffs and this change in policy are more manufacturing jobs in the Rust Belt, in the Midwest, in the parts of the country that are really frustrated, in rural areas. And there's no indication that that's happening. To the contrary.
So, Juliet, what do you think are the long-term consequences for BLS and that data? Because nobody knows whether the data will now be cooked. And that's kind of the problem. The problem is that it might or might not be cooked, but nobody knows.
Right. And so the story, in some ways, there's no remedy. The person put in place was the number two, a career person from the Department of Labor. We don't know what Trump has said. I believe that he has three names in mind. We'll see what those names are. And that person will have to be Senate confirmed. But as we've seen before,
that'll be hard. That's so difficult.
Exactly. Republicans in the Senate, once again, just lined up behind him in this firing, not even a question about whether this is how one should address potential challenges in the U.S. economy. And there's going to be two responses. I mean, one is there is a private sector data capacity. So it's not as great. It's not as reliable. It doesn't have the same gravitas as government entities, but it's out there and it cannot be ignored because it's going to drive the private sector market. So or a large bank, let's just say Morgan Stanley, determines that hiring has frozen, or that there's firings or whatever it is, that is going to go into the mix of people's sense of what the economy is like. But it's never going to compete with valid numbers that we thought we had out there. The second is, we are a global economy. Foreign governments, foreign banks, foreign stock markets, London Stock Exchange, for example, are competitors. They are also looking at what we're doing. They are monitoring this stuff as well. We are in competition. The less reliance people have on our markets, the more likely it is they're going to invest in others. And you are seeing this pushback in a way you're not seeing in the United States by various countries that are simply not going to play this game. Mexico being the best example, but even Brazil, which Donald Trump has threatened because he likes their former president who is being prosecuted for insurrection, essentially. Brazil is not blinking. So you're going to see that kind of pushback. But so there's alternatives, but none of them are as good.
One of the things that is dismal about this, when you look at examples from other countries like Greece and Argentina that started cooking the books on their own internal economic data, it was just like a mess, right? I mean, then investors start pricing in extra costs for borrowing because they know that these numbers are not real. With the United States, because we're such an economic behemoth, there are going to be somewhat different rules, right? They're not going to be able to just tell us to get lost in quite the same way. And yet, so much that Trump is doing, one imagines that over the medium to long term, you're going to have serious erosion, and that is going to probably include within the Bureau of Labor Statistics, despite all the kind of, gold standard protections you were talking about earlier, Juliet. And I can't help but connect this to what's happening in the Justice Department right now. There was a story last week that barely got any attention, but kind of set my hair on fire, which was that the Inspector General's office in the Justice Department had either sat on or buried, somehow ignored a second whistleblower complaint about Emile Beauvais, who was the Trump former lawyer and Justice Department official who was being confirmed to a judgeship on the Third Circuit. And this was a whistleblower support that would have backed up the first report from Erez Raveni, who was the former immigration lawyer we've talked about before on the show. And look, it is possible that we were just talking about Senate confirmation, that the Republicans in the Senate would have confirmed Beauvais anyway. But two accusers is different from one accuser, right? That is a really important thing we've learned from Me Too. There was a second accuser in the Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas story who didn't come forward. It matters. And I don't know why the Inspector General and his office in DOJ didn't surface this report earlier, but it is really distressing. It's like watching the government kind of bend the will of Trump and being afraid of him and cowed in their own internal processes that were supposed to be, uncorruptible because they were part of this whole career civil servant. Oh, there are all these ethical protections. It's all being degraded incredibly quickly. And, you can just imagine this happening in other agencies, including the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Look, COVID. I mean, the guy lied about the numbers of dead during COVID. I mean, we sort of forget that. Like there was a first administration. I mean, I don't know, what is it, 1.3 million now? I mean, he was cooking the books about the number dead in COVID because these numbers, don't satisfy his agenda. I mean, I agree with you, Emily. Waiting till the next election seems like way too long. What I don't understand is, on the one hand, you have him sort of playing with these numbers, disrupting the global economy. Today, the day we're taping on August 7th, all the new tariffs are coming on board unless he blinks again. And you have that out there. And then you have the fact he's wildly unpopular. And I'm constantly like, he's wildly unpopular. Why don't we keep pushing on the wildly unpopular part? You just look at it, he's under 40%, but amongst independents who are the ones that matter, he's like, I don't know, in the 20%. It's like people don't like this stuff. And so I'm not sure what the mismatch, it might be, just the nature of our politics. And we're going to talk about this later, but in gerrymandering and protected seats. But nonetheless, it's a disconnect that I just still can't get my head around.
Well, it's also, I think there's several points. One, we're going to talk about the political effects, which is that he can be unpopular, Republicans can be unpopular, and yet still be in a very strong electoral position. One. And two, and this goes back to a point that Emily, you make every week correctly, is that a lot of the downstream impacts of what Trump is doing are several months, years away. And so the damage to undermining the BLS data, or the damage to undermining the fair allocation of justice in the United States, don't happen to lots of people all at once. It takes time. It takes time for people to stop, to lose public trust in jobs data, such that the dollar is weaker, such that America has a harder time getting investment in its debt, such that interest rates are higher, such that it's riskier to invest in the US, such that it's a drag on the economy. It doesn't all happen instantly. And that's one of the reasons why what Trump is doing is so, it's so incredibly effective, because it doesn't tank the things that he's going after immediately. It takes time.
I also think it creates doubt about whether his critics are correct or not, right?
Right.
He makes these moves, like tariffs are supposed to destroy the economy. You kind of brace for disaster, and then it doesn't come. And it starts to feel like people are saying the sky is falling, and it's not. In fact, if you dig a little, you can see that there is a sense that this medium to long-term effect is the real one. Jason Furman wrote about this effectively this week, about how what we're talking about is like a 0.5% loss in the economy. And that actually is like very real, right? I think he compared it to every family setting $1,000 on fire. It's measurable, but it is the kind of drag that can just feel like someone is a little bit holding you back over time, and that you might not attribute to these particular policies because you could chalk it up to something else. And it does, I think, create a kind of sense of disconnect of the predictions of disaster that we hear from the kind of liberal commentariat, and then like what it actually feels like day to day.
I want to just end this topic on the other piece of economic news that was interesting for Trump this week, which is he has this whole campaign to strong arm the economy, and it's hard to separate what he did with the BLS, head of BLS, from what he's trying to do to the Fed, where he's been clearly trying to push out Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed, so he can get a more compliant Fed chair who will lower interest rates. And now a Fed governor, Adriana Kugler, is leaving 6 months from the end of her term, so that giving Trump a seat to fill. And then I didn't realize this until I was reading about Kugler. Trump can only fill the Powell seat, can only replace Powell with someone who's already on the Fed. So what this gives is Trump somebody he can put on the Fed who he can then elevate to the chair. So it's given him this stepping stone position for the chairship, which he wasn't going to have otherwise, which is
significant,
which is great for Trump.
Yeah.
It is really. I find what Kugler did very mysterious. Like it's like someone has something on her.
6 months, like I know. I was literally like, I mean, you could spend more time with your family in January. Like I was like, I could not, and she did not give any explanation.
It really feels like there's a second story there, which she doesn't. She's who knows, but who knows what it is? But it is extremely suspicious looking, especially because she's not a Trumpist. She was appointed by Biden, I believe.
Yeah. And when I first read it, I thought, no biggie, 6 months, so he gets 6 months. But it's the Powell replacement, whoever this person is going to be, that is the opening that Trump did not have before. He was going to have to pick from the present Fed members.
Two of
maybe
whom he
one or
already
two
appointed.
Of them. Yeah, so that could have been them, but this gives him an opportunity to have someone in place who will likely be the new head, battling with Powell for the next 6 months. I just thought, I just, to me, like people have an obligation, like Democrats or good government people have an obligation, especially in this instance when the sacrifice didn't seem so great, unless there's a husband dying or, a kid, some major thing where she probably should have given an explanation if that were the case. But this just sounded like, I want to get back to school in time for the fall semester. That
is definitely false, because no professor in history has ever said
has rushed back.
They're like, oh yeah, I really want to teach undergrads now. Can't wait.
Exactly.
Love to teach Ec 101 to a bunch of Georgetown undergrads. Thank you. This episode of the Gabfest is brought to you by Smalls. Is your cat ready for a diet upgrade? Then you need Smalls cat food, named the best overall cat food by Cats.com. And who knows cat food better than Cats.com? Smalls cat food is packed with protein and made with preservative-free ingredients, giving your cat the high-quality meal they deserve. And it's delivered right to your door. After switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported noticeable improvements in their cat's overall health. And the team at Smalls is so confident your cat will love their product, you can try it completely risk-free. What are you waiting for? Give your cat the food they deserve. For a limited time only, because you're a Gabfest listener, you can get 60% off your first Smalls order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/Gabfest. That's 60% off when you head to smalls.com/Gabfest plus free shipping. Again, that's smalls.com/Gabfest. This episode of the Gabfest is sponsored by Bombas. Summer's here and we're all chasing something, a break, a goal, a vibe. Do not let bad socks and blisters ruin it. I am a Bombas socks evangelist. I'm a Bombas socks enthusiast. Every day I'm in my Bombas socks now. They're so comfortable. They have this incredible quality of being both cool and breathable, but also holding tight, gripping in all the right ways. And it makes all the kind of exercise I do in Bombas a pure joy. And Bombas doesn't stop at socks. Check out the fresh white tees, waterproof slides for the beach, and buttery soft sweat-wicking underwear for head-to-toe comfort. Best of all, Bombas items don't just feel good, they do good, because one purchased equals one donated to someone who needs it. Head over to bombas.com/political and use code political for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/political, code political at checkout. Bombas.com/political and use code political. Let's move from the disastrous undermining of government data to the disastrous undermining of representative government. The Testrick, Texas redistricting standoff is threatening to cascade into a national redistricting waterfall that's going to, we've already undermined representative government and gutted the value of voting across the nation, but this threatens to do it on an even larger scale. So, Emily, we talked last week about sort of what the Texas Democrats are doing. We should recapitulate that quickly, but what are the downstream effects, to use that term again? What could happen if or when the Texas Republicans push through this plan to give themselves 5 more seats in the House, in the National House?
Right. So Texas is, in all likelihood, eventually going to pull off this mid-decade redistricting and create these seats that are more likely to go to Republicans than not. Right. So you see this potential 5-seat gain. And then we're already seeing blue states try to retaliate. So California, Governor Newsom is going to try to suspend the law that has created this nonpartisan redistricting commission so that California can try to add 5 seats. And there are other states, a whole bunch of them, that can get in on this game. Missouri, Ohio, Illinois, New York. Like, it's going to be a kind of race to the bottom. And there are kind of 2 big problems that I rue about this. The first is that this move toward more restrained drawing of lines, in other words, restraints on gerrymandering, like it had some momentum behind it. There are, I think 13 or 14 states that have some kind of redistricting commission that is not directly controlled by the legislature. There are another about 10 states that have had state court decisions that have created some restraints. And we're going to see a lot of that go by the wayside because there is understandably a feeling that if you have one side, i.e. big Republican states that are wringing every last drop of partisan political power out of line drawing, then you have to be doing it on the other side. And so I think that is just like bad for democracy from the beginning. It puts much more weight onto primaries than onto general elections because you're basically choosing the representative at the primary stage because it's weighted. The composition of your district means that if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat, it's gerrymandered in such a way that you will probably win. And I think that's just bad. You're having less like truly contested elections, fewer truly contested elections between the parties in both Congress and probably in state legislative districts. And then
just
please.
The scale of that fewer. So about 20 years ago, there were 164 seats in the House that were considered up for grabs. Now it's literally like maybe, a dozen.
And it might be 0. Right? I mean, yeah. So there's that effect. And then the other thing, when you start looking at the maps and playing around with them, if you imagine a world in which more or most states kind of do some maximizing of gerrymandering, you see more and more regional polarization in the country, right? Where like there are no Republican members of Congress from the Pacific Northwest or from the Northeast. And I think this is already true. There are very few Democrats from from the South. Like you just more and more emphasize the same kinds of trends we see with the Electoral College, where the country is dividing itself into these regional pieces. And you're going to have fewer really bipartisan congressional delegations from a state. And that is also going to, fracture the country and make people feel more and more divided from each other. And I think like warp our political system, things like spending, deciding where the budget's going to go. All those things are affected if you don't have anyone, standing up for California who's a Republican in Congress, or, the flip side, anyway, it is. I fear that it is going to have this sort of exacerbating the kind of political polarization that we already have more and more, and having it be regional. It just seems kind of alarming. Like it has like Civil War feelings about it, right?
Yeah.
There are almost no states already that have two senators from different parties. There are very few states because states have become so polarized.
And the interesting thing is, though, you do get dynamics like Kentucky, where you can get a Democratic governor. You have North Carolina, which has sort of a split, funky, and we'll have a big fight where you can get a progressive governor. So it does suggest that voters are less ideological than their districts, and we're about to make them more ideological because they're really going to have no choice. Or the guy who wins, the crazy who wins the primary is going to be the only choice, rather than potentially a middle of the road or Republican or Democrat. So I do think that the statewide races suggest that our congressional districts really are not reflecting what these states are actually like.
Right. I mean, the governor point is such an important one because, as you're saying, that's a statewide office. And also you're choosing someone who's actually going to run the place as opposed to just like speechify, which is a lot of what members of Congress do.
One thing I think about is like, well, people should move, but no one moves to vote. Like people move, you move for a job, you move for love, you move, because of some deep distress. You don't move because it's like, oh, I don't cast a meaningful vote. I live in Washington, D.C. I know this vividly. I haven't cast a meaningful vote in my entire life. People don't do it. And so it's not enough to say, well, okay, it's just, we just need more migration and it will fix itself. It will never fix itself. And the only solution that I came up with is a terrible solution, which is that if you're a Democrat in Texas or you're a Republican in California, you should register in the other party. And Democrats in Texas should just say, you know what, we're going to encourage a mass registration of our voters in the Republican Party, and we're going to vote. We are going to encourage the most moderate Republicans. They'll still be Republicans, but the most moderate Republicans to run and vote for those people in the primaries and see what happens. I mean, again, you probably can't get enough people to actually go ahead and do that. Otherwise, if you're a Democrat in Texas or Republican in California, you literally you don't have a vote. You have no power in the system. It's ridiculous. It's terrible.
I want to add, though, I mean, yes, we're talking about Texas, but Texas is doing this because Trump asked them to. And so it is consistent with, what we need to anticipate for 2026 and 2028, whether it's the investigations of Comey and others that were recently announced having to do with the 2016 or 2020 elections, Trump's review of the 2020 election and the sort of litmus test he has for his appointees about whether Biden actually won. The announcement this morning, I guess I should say on August 7th, it's unclear what it means, but Trump apparently either didn't go to sleep or woke up this morning, and we all have headlines today about Trump demanding a new mid-decade census. I don't even know what it means, but is going after voting and the numbers. And then, of course, the lingering threat out there of two things. One is, that the Supreme Court is priming itself to support only Republicans winning in these elections if it goes before them. And then the use of the military should the court should the court stop Trump. I used to say this, and I used to say this to myself and think, oh, you're going to sound like a crazy person. But I don't see any suggestion that that's not the plan. And until someone tells me it's not the plan, and I have confidence that, the Hegseth is really committed to democracy, I think we have to anticipate all of these things. Texas just being one piece of a larger denial of the vote by whatever means possible. And the military means being, I think, the one of last resort, but one that they're clearly priming for. So it's not just about Texas. This is how he will keep the House, or hopes to keep the House, and then whatever his plans are for running again, or having Vance be the next president. All of those are in play right now, and he's making it clear they are. I don't think you have to be paranoid to believe it.
Okay, here's another paranoid, or maybe not so paranoid thought along those lines. We're going to have thousands of new ICE agents, a kind of new federal law enforcement force. Not new, but like much grown from the past. When you start looking forward to these like really distressing scenarios about controlling the voting process and the democracy, how much do you factor that in?
I don't live on the planet you guys are living on. I think they have plenty of power. I guess I just don't anticipate that the militarization of U.S. elections is coming soon. But you guys go ahead and live there. I mean, everything else terrible has come to pass. So why not that?
No, I guess I put it a different way. I don't think the military is going to walk into a Detroit polling booth and walk off with the ballots. I think the militarization is more subtle than that. I think it goes to people being fearful of free expression, of asserting their democratic rights, of going out in the streets if need be. And I think that fear that you hear across the board. Look, the Texas Democratic legislators who fled had to then flee a hotel which had a bomb threat. I mean, I think all of that sort of whiff of violence, or more than a whiff, is going to be part of how we think about democracy for the time being. And I think he has willing accomplices, in particular with Secretary Hegseth and then Secretary of Homeland Security Noem, who will utilize that apparatus. He didn't have that. He did not have that in 2020. He had someone. He had two people who were unwilling to do that.
Emily, do you think there's any chance that this Supreme Court, would look at the extremity to which gerrymandering has been pushed and say, you know what, we've actually created a situation that is disastrous, and we do need to pull this back, and that you would have, because I know I'm naive, but I guess I don't see Amy Coney Barrett, John Roberts, and Brett Kavanaugh being into the destruction of democracy.
No. The answer is no. I see no chance. I mean, they shut the door on this in 2019 in this case called Common Cause versus Rucho. And if you go back and you look at Justice Kagan's dissent in that case, she predicted all of this, and they were not interested. And, it was a slightly different court then, but not really. It's only become more conservative. And Chief Justice John Roberts has really been on board for this project. When you read the majority opinion slamming the door on any kind of federal court remedy for addressing extreme gerrymandering, it's super unpersuasive. It just says, basically, we can't come up with a manageable standard that judges can enforce. Well, since then and before then, a bunch of states did exactly that, using their own state constitutions as the basis for a yardstick. And what, Kagan says really forcefully in that decision is that you can prevent the extreme kind of gerrymandering, right? You don't have to tell, there's always some amount of this in state legislative line drawing. That's part of the problem with it. It's not you're going from vanilla ice cream to chocolate ice cream. There's a sliding scale, but you can look at the edges of it and decide that, this is too much. So I wish, David, that I thought that the current conservative Supreme Court majority would be interested in reviving Kagan's argument, and I think they could figure out how to address it, but they're not interested in doing so. I really don't doubt it.
Just final question. You're obviously more sympathetic to Democrats and Republicans, I think, in this example. Do you believe, Juliet, that California and New York, say, should proceed with a gerrymander that grabs some Republican seats?
Yes, but I wouldn't have said yes a year ago. I have definitely gone through a bit of a transformation myself as I see what's happening. I'm an institutionalist. I'm a girl who plays by the rules. I don't like to break things. I'm like, I don't think the system is fine. I don't think we're in a dictatorship. I think the system is obviously more vulnerable to heading towards an autocracy than I thought. And I think that means that, my general theory is everyone in the arena. And I think, I don't know whether California can do it. They have a state law that may prohibit it. But I don't see why we being Democrats have to sit back and say, isn't it horrible that they don't play by the rules? The very rules that will determine whether Democrats can ever win a majority again, and just sit back and say, isn't that bad of them? And so but I've changed. I mean, this is not how I was in Trump 1.0, but my experience looking from afar, looking at my own personal experience as someone who used to be engaged with government, even in Trump 1.0, in the field that I'm in. I've been to DC once in the last 6 months, and that was just for a Doge.
Thanks for calling.
I know, a Doge force retirement party. Like that was it. Like that was, but so it's just like, so yeah, that's maybe TMI, but I think that you do push back and you get the Republicans to fear that the Democrats will do this, because you are starting to hear some of this. I thought it was interesting. Ari Fleischer, who people will remember, it was Bush's press secretary. He's a sort of a gadfly now, but and a big Trumper. He came out and said we should not be messing with this.
I don't think I would. I don't think I support this, even though I don't think I support California and New York doing this. I think the long-term consequences are worse than the short-term ones if they do it. But Emily, you don't have to put a chit on the table.
No, I mean, I think there's this tension between unilateral disarmament and the problems that arise. Eric Holder, who was a big nonpartisan redistricting guy, like he's Obama's former attorney general. This has been his big project. He's on Juliet's side of this. But then I was reading something in The Economist, David, that was making your point. I think there's this tension between the short and the long term, right? Like if you think the long term is stable enough, then yeah, you care about the long term. But if you think like the democracy could be seriously threatened in the short term, then unilateral disarmament seems like a bad idea.
This episode of the Gabfest is brought to you by Built. If you're paying rent every month without earning anything in return, consider joining Built, the rewards program designed for renters who want to earn something for their largest monthly expense. By paying rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But it doesn't stop there. Built is about making your entire neighborhood more rewarding. You can dine out at your favorite local restaurants and earn additional points, get VIP treatment at certain fitness studios, and enjoy exclusive experiences just for Built members every month. Built is turning a monthly expense into an opportunity to earn rewards and discover the best that your neighborhood has to offer. Your rent is finally working for you. Earn points on rent and around your neighborhood wherever you call home by going to joinbuilt.com/Gabfest. That's joinbilt.com/Gabfest. Make sure to use the unique URL joinbilt.com/Gabfest. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything: cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what actually works for you? With the internet and information overload about mental health and wellness, it can be a struggle to know what actions to take these days. Using trusted resources and talking to live therapists can get you personalized recommendations and help you break through the noise. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. It's convenient, too. You can join a session with a therapist at the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. Plus, switch therapists at any time. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/gabfest. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/gabfest.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Laura Loomer. Hard to come up with all the words to describe her. MAGA is insufficient. Zealous is insufficient.
I think Rasputin is pretty good. She's going for her chosen moniker right now is Trump's Rasputin, and I feel like that does capture something about what's happening because
Isn't it Rasputin?
Oh yeah,
is it
probably Rasputin.
Or is it But Putin is Putin, but he's not Putin.
I think I said it wrong because of Putin. Rasputin. Yes, continue on.
Yeah.
Sorry for that mispronunciation, everyone.
Can you imagine wanting that to be your title? I mean, like literally, does she like it's like not like Trump's whisperer, Trump's, I don't know.
I grew up. So Rasputin was the mystic priest who advised Alexandra, the wife of the Tsar Nicholas, and was sort of the hatchet man in late Tsarist Russia. Yeah. I grew up in my neighbor, the Obolenskys. Their granddad was one of Rasputin's killers. Rasputin famously hard to kill, but the Obolenskys, Prince Obolensky, had been part of the team that had managed to kill Rasputin. I just remember growing up with the Obolensky kids and thinking, I'm not going to mess with them. Was
that like a sleepover talk? Like, how does that come out?
I feel like my parents told me. I don't think the kids, the Obolenskys, to be honest, they were sort of around the corner and they weren't like part of the central neighborhood crew. So I didn't spend a lot of time with them, but that was the talk. Anyway, so Laura Loomer, not Rasputin, very young. She's probably the most extremely online person in the world. She is probably the second most effective online person in America after Donald Trump. She is so effective. She's an incredible sniper. She has gone after. So what she does, she's this very young woman who grew up as a Republican MAGA activist in the early days of MAGA and was part of Project Veritas, that undercover entrapment organization that tried to show Democrats or left-leaning organizations doing unfair things. And she then moved on to become the most loyal Trumpist there is, and has now set herself the role of being the loyalty enforcer. And she has now forced or compelled or persuaded the Trump administration to fire the top vaccine official at FDA, to fire a bunch of NSC officials, to deny an appointment at West Point to a top cybersecurity expert, all of whom she claimed were, they were Biden stooges, or that they were insufficiently supportive of Trump's agenda. And she causes terror in the world, and she is beloved by Trump. What's the deal, Emily? She's like she's a Jewish girl from Arizona who's grown up to become one of the most powerful people in the country with no title, no job, and Trump's ear.
I mean, I think let's just take the straight facts as opposed to the sort of, speculation about like whether Trump either has a big crush on her or whether there's some other relationship going on there. The straight facts are just that he trusts her to have her finger on the pulse of MAGA and has some kind of, I think, respect for what she stands for. In terms of, I think, two things. One is letting him know what people in that most sort of red meat oriented base, what they want. what's going to, make them feel like he's their guy. She is his conduit to that. And then the second thing is some sense that if he doesn't respond to her, then there could be trouble in that base, right? So she picks these people who she goes after, and then they either don't get some position that they were up for in the government or they get fired. And they're like kind of second tier people, right? They're like not people I'm like, oh, this person was up for some job at West Point. Like it's not someone who you've ever heard of, right?
Well, Pam Bondi, she wants Pam Bondi up, but was not effective at getting Pam Bondi up.
Yes, Pam Bondi survived a Laura Loomer attack, which is interesting and suggests that when you're at the top of the government, maybe you're doing enough and would be hard enough to replace that Trump is not going to actually listen. But that's the exception to the rule, right? When you pick these like second or third tier people, is there really going to be a strong enough constituency to protect them? So far, the answer is no. And so as she adds to her pile of scalps, I guess she feels like she's amassing power. So far, it seems like a kind of negative form of power. It's all about taking people out. But I don't know, maybe down the line, she, starts putting people forward who get jobs and then owe her, or maybe she gets something herself.
This is this is one of those things where everyone acts like Donald Trump has no agency. It's like you read the stories about Loomer and it's like, oh, she's this person who's like, doing these fights and his staff is trying to protect him from her and he doesn't know what's going on. All this, of course, like either our president is senile or has mental deterioration, which I think is a legitimate thing to ask if anyone who's watched him lately, or he totally wants this. And if he totally wants this, just to remind people, Laura Loomer became famous as a 9/11 attack denier and as honestly the biggest Islamophobe, anti-Muslim, anti-Arab, I would say American in terms of her hatred of Muslims and Arabs. And she's just basically rode that train. She was ostracized at various moments for how extreme she took it about, and I'm Arab American, so we've known about Laura Loomer for a long time, and how extreme she had taken it. But she's now in the fold, and she's in the fold because Donald Trump wants her in the fold. And if you don't believe that, then you have to believe that he's senile and not running the government, because there's no in between. And she wants you to believe that she has his ear. I want to say, like, Emily's exactly right. Like, she's there. She's sometimes like in the campaign, she was sometimes with the campaign, not the campaign. She has no formal role. She clearly has access, probably through Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff, into the Oval Office. But it's so petty that her influence is around sort of her ability to make a lot of noise. Jen Easterly is a perfect example that Emily brought up. Jen Easterly is well known in my world, like a cybersecurity expert, ran CISA, the Critical Infrastructure and Cybersecurity Agency within DHS, had private sector background, military, West Point. And it's going to make more money than God now that she's out of the Biden administration. She was one of the senior leaders in cybersecurity. She does not need a West Point appointment, but she gets one because she is a leader and she's a West Point alumni. And one would think it would be good to have our future leaders in the military be taught by a woman who's like, honestly, there's like 3 names at the top of cybersecurity, and she's one of them in the US. And this is the kind of person that Laura Loomer takes out. No one knows who Jen Easterly really is outside of the circles of cybersecurity, but it is a big harm, obviously, I think, to West Point in the sense that West Point brings in subject matter experts rather than gets played around with on the politics. So I don't know who her next focus is, but it's just, remember, she is a 9/11 denier, and just that should stop the conversation.
This is just another facet of the conversation we had around labor statistics. You're seeing an experiment, a really dismal experiment in what happens when government and institutions are not run with anything like competence or excellence as their goal, but loyalty or fealty, not even loyalty, fealty is the goal. And what I find incredible about Loomer is, like, she isn't interested. She has no interest apparently in like the government being good or being effective or anything. She's interested in people who are, she just wants to obey. She loves obeying and to make everyone else obey. And that's a really terrible way to do anything. That's a terrible system. As you know, if you've ever been anywhere, like people who agree with you all the time, who affirm you, who carry forward what you want, whether it's stupid or not, are that makes institutions and organizations completely ineffective. And it is, Loomer's just one person who is exacerbating this tendency in the Trump administration. She's a particularly effective one. She's a particularly relentless one. But that's the operating philosophy of Trumpism. Has nothing to do with do it well. It has to do with do it loyally. And that eventually the gap between that the sort of incompetence and the lies that they're telling and the actual lived reality that most people have will become unbridgeable, and people will be like, you promised us this. It's just like everything is a mess. But it takes a long time, and they control a lot of the levers of power, and they're just going to fill the government with these incompetent and often wicked people.
There was a story that we read before this, and it was about how the conspiracy sometimes turns on Loomer. And honestly, I could not figure out, like, basically now MAGA has, more extreme MAGA has turned against Loomer for something that she might have done. You cannot follow these conspiracies. I read the article like 3 times. I was like, why are they mad at her? I think the other thing is it shows just how bad Trump's chief of staff, Susan Wiley, is. I mean, you never hear about her. She is like non-existent, and she.
Why do you mean how bad she is? They're incredibly effective. They do whatever they want. They're getting everything done that they want to get done. Seems like incredibly effective.
But the White House does try to distance Trump from this access point that she has. Like there doesn't seem to be any discipline. When she came on board, they basically said, now it's going to be a disciplined White House. She's really good. It's not disciplined. It's these random people getting in Trump's ear and pushing these agendas.
I guess your metric for what disciplined means or effective means is different than theirs. I think if you're in the Trump White House, you're like, we've had a really, really great 6 months, and we have, won victory after victory. Everyone is running scared of us. We can say whatever we want. We can do whatever we want, and no one is going to stop us. And that seems pretty good if you're the White House chief of staff. I mean, I don't know if the signing statements or the office is not run very well and the coffee machine isn't full, but like the output, the effectiveness, the output is incredible.
I don't think you try to change voting if you think that this, I mean, might be effective, but I think they know from the firings, they know how wildly unsuccessful or unpopular a lot of this is. And I think they were living in a cocoon. But look at the immigration stuff. They're going to give ICE all of this power, but they're already retreating from the enforcement stuff because they're hearing from their own people that the independents really don't like this.
Julia, you're in the cocoon. Like, they're retreating mildly. They've driven 1.7 million people out of the country, out of the workforce. They've more or less stopped border crossings. They have scared the hell out of people.
But Juliet's talking about reality check. There are going to be some people who are like slightly cooler headed that have some role in the federal government in the Trump administration who are like, we've done all this like incredibly, extreme partisan stuff. But how is that really going to play in the whole rest of the country? I think that's what Juliet's imagining.
It's the difference between effective. I give you that they've been effective in doing what they're doing. They haven't been effective in convincing the American public that this is actually beneficial.
But it's interesting, like most of the time when you are elected, you say, we're going to spend this capital to get the things done that we want. They're spending the capital and they're getting a shitload of stuff done that they want. And they've also bent the rules of election so that spending the capital doesn't cost them as much.
Right.
So
the second part is to me proof that even if they get what they want, whatever they want is not popular. And they're going to have to face the music or deny the music, as we're seeing in Texas, right? There's going to be no reckoning.
I want to just put one more note in this segment before we close, which is about the ongoing Epstein saga. Right? It's sort of the exception to the rule in which Loomer didn't just obey. You know, Trump told the people fussing over Epstein to drop it. They're not dropping it. It's like continuing. I mean, now we have some House Oversight Committee that is like supposedly sending subpoenas, mostly to Democrats, but also to Trump's former attorneys general, Jeff Sessions and Bill Barr. There's a way in which this story, this thread of the MAGA tapestry, just like can't be kind of ripped out. And it's in some ways kind of weird that this is the thing that people are holding on to in rebellion against Trump. And they're still, I don't think, really blaming him directly for it. But I feel like even though to me it seems like a total sideshow, it's important because it is actually challenging him, right? And providing this this sort of challenge and test to people like Loomer about, you know, how far they're going to go with it.
Let us go to cocktail chatter when you are contemplating. I was trying to think of some Laura Loomer thing to throw in there, and I was like, I got too depressed as I was doing Rasputin, a Rasputin cocktail. But like, I think Rasputin probably just threw back vodka. Yeah. So when you're having a Rasputin cocktail on your New Haven porch, Emily, what will you be slurring to Dr. Bazelon about?
I feel like Rasputin could not afford to just be like completely.
Yeah, he had to keep his back up.
Right? He needed some very subtle drink. Maybe he didn't drink at all because he always had to have his wits about him.
I'm going to Google. I'm Googling now. Okay.
Anyway, I am eyeing with interest a racket sport called padel. And I wonder, Juliette, if you have played this yet. Not paddle. Okay, so it's not paddle. It's not pickleball.
Rasputin, its fondness for Madeira wine is well documented, according to the AI.
That's like a girly drink, though. I'm kind of surprised. No offense.
Maybe it had a
very heavy drinker, according to this other thing.
Okay.
Maybe in his interesting.
Can you be a heavy drinker just on wine? I thought it was like
maybe
anyway.
Definitely.
Now I have another thing I have to catch up on because Emily's way ahead of me on tennis and running.
Padel is all over the place. Like whenever I watch like the F1 series, the F1 drivers are always playing padel. I was in South Africa; there are padel courts everywhere.
Oh, were you in South Africa?
He was.
Just drop that in.
And also, it's all over Latin America. So I have a friend who's Argentinian who's super into this game. I play a lot of tennis with her. She keeps trying to tempt me over into padel land, and it looks fun. And I haven't played yet, but it has these appealing qualities. So one of my beefs with first of all, like I am a tennis player first and foremost. One of my beefs with other sports is whether you're likely to get hurt playing them. And some of the other racket sports, not pickleball, but some of the others, like when I go and play squash, I'm like totally in danger of hitting the other person in the face the entire time because I swing like a tennis player. And so that seems bad. This one, though, it's like a little racket. You're supposed to have these short strokes and the ball goes zinging all over the place. In fact, my favorite thing about it is that you can leave the court. You can go out of the opening into the court and hit the ball back into the court if it goes out. I'm sure this doesn't happen all that much, but the videos of it on YouTube are super cool. So anyway, I don't know. I want to try it. And I wonder what our listeners' experiences are of playing padel if they are already doing that, especially if you've gone out of the country. It already has like millions of people playing it.
Maybe David will invite us to South Africa.
Oh my God.
Next time.
Jeez, I take one vacation. It's like,
okay, I know I'm losing my status.
You live such a life of deprivation down in.
I know I'm losing my status as a favorite. So first of all, I have to tell all listeners that Emily and I are about the same age, over 51, under 59. It's a good, and I run with her. I think I can handle it about once a year. And she is so fast and so fit that she does paddle like she's gonna kick ass. Padel. But I will say, like, I have this whole trick with Emily. Like, I'll be like, because I can't talk and run her pace at the same time. So I'll be like, how are the kids? And then I just let her talk.
Which is, of course, what I do with my running partner.
Can you believe what Justice Roberts said?
Yeah, exactly. Tell me more about Texas.
This is a great exaggeration of my fitness, which I am just enjoying so much. So keep going, please.
So I feel like I might actually lose my status, but I would like to admit to listeners that I too have spent maybe 4 to 5 hours in the last week on the Pamela Anderson, Liam Neeson news, and find it lovely.
That they have a romance.
Would you like to update
yes,
our
I would
listeners?
like to update. So Pamela Anderson, people remember, she Baywatch, the famous sex tape, has had a very wacky life, but has reemerged in the last year or two as a serious actress. She was a Oscar contender. She did not get the nomination for a recent film. That
was a terrible movie, by the way. So it was
That's the last Showgirl?
Yeah,
I thought it looked good.
Oh, it was so bad. It was so dreary.
Yeah, she's taken on. No, this is a pro Pamela segment.
No, I love her. I love her.
You keep your doubting hands off.
Like took off all of her makeup, and she's like sort of pushing this whole sort of natural look. So out of nowhere, apparently, except like it was so exciting. She's a co-star with Liam Neeson in
The Naked Gun.
Naked Gun 2. Liam Neeson, people will remember, because I remember, has done a lot of serious roles in which he's always been like angry assassin or vigilante, and has decided to be kind of funny in this movie.
How can there only be Naked Gun 2? I feel like this should be like Naked Gun 12.
I think it's called The Naked Gun. I think it's just a reboot of The Naked Gun.
So, and anyway, I have to finish the story. So Liam Neeson faced a tragedy over a decade ago that his beloved wife, an actress, Natasha Richardson, passed away in a tragic skiing accident. And to anyone's knowledge, he has not had a serious romance since. Okay, so then they show up on the red carpet, like very flirty, like whatever. And now they've admitted that they're having a relationship. And when they admitted it on Instagram, I told you I went down the rabbit hole. The first person to respond to it with heart emojis was his former wife's sister, sort of acknowledging that the family was very accepting of it. Anyway, I'm getting chills just telling this story. I love it.
I'm looking up all the red carpet pictures. In fact, I bet an ad is going to start playing in just a minute.
They're so cute. Anyway, I like this
story.
Can
I just note that a lot of people die in skiing accidents? Sonny Bono. There was a Kennedy. One of the Kennedys died in a skiing accident. Skiing is not safe. Don't ski, guys.
I have winter sports, period. That's my theory.
Winter sports.
All winter sports. I'm from California. I don't get skiing. I mean, I'm a beach bum. This is what the Peloton is for. All winter sports.
Oh my God, sorry. I'm fucking cramping. Ow.
Oh,
ow.
God.
Ow.
This happens
no.
Sorry, David.
Ow.
You just mentioned dangerous sports.
Ow. Ow.
What happened? He has
sometimes he has like leg. I think it's.
Oh, no.
Is it leg or back?
Leg.
He'll reappear.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
No, I feel horrible.
It happens when I'd worked out very strenuously before the show, and when I sit in the same spot.
Anyway, that's my ode to Pamela and Liam, and I'm never going to get an opportunity to discuss it again. So I appreciate both of you for this opportunity.
This is me now chattering from the floor because I cannot sit back up in my chair. So my chatter is just, I was going to chatter this deeply depressing Ann Applebaum article in The Atlantic about the Sudan civil war, which I recommend that you read. It's just really depressing, but that's not I decided instead, I am so excited. There are 2 TV shows I love came back this week, came back last night, in fact, on Wednesday. The show Wednesday on Netflix, which is this reboot of The Addams Family, is back. And watched the first episode of it last night, season 2. So charming. And then one of my favorite shows that I've seen in recent years, Platonic. Did you guys watch that?
No, I've been reading all about it. I'm going to catch up. Season 2,
season
right?
2
Just
is back.
started.
Season 2 with Seth Rogen and to my mind, the greatest, funniest person on the world, Rose Byrne, who I think is just incredible. And they have the most charming chemistry. They're not a couple, they're friends. They have a platonic friendship, and they are so charming together. And she's amazing.
Oh, good.
So I cannot wait for season 2.
I'm looking for shows. I started Sticks on
is that good?
I think Apple TV. It's fantastic.
It's on my list. I love golf. So
good.
I started Too Much, the Lena Dunham show, and it was funny.
Really? I'm so skeptical.
Yeah. No, funny.
Not going to watch it.
Juliet is
not going to watch it.
No, I don't want to get into.
I love that actress.
Get into trouble with her.
Yeah. That actress
she's
is great.
She's from
Hacks.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, you have sent us chatters. You've emailed them to us at gabfest@slate.com. Thanks for doing that. Please keep them coming. And our chatter this week comes from Bill Jacob in Provincetown, Massachusetts.
Hi, Gabfest. This is Bill Jacob calling from Provincetown, Massachusetts. I've been caught up in something from Podcast Nation called The Telepathy Tapes, a podcast beyond words by Kai Dickens. It explores the phenomenon of telepathy, specifically telepathic communication within the nonverbal autistic community and their immediate caregivers. It presents current and past testing that bolster the claim, and it explores the ongoing culture of shaming around the topic among both the scientific community and even members of the larger autistic world. And I'm only halfway through it. There's definitely more to come. It's a fascinating story that leads you to question the very nature of consciousness as we explain it today, and to marvel at humanity's innate drive to connect despite all impediments. I highly recommend it. And thanks for all your hard work on the Gabfest. I always look forward to it.
That's all for our episode this week. We also have a bonus episode in your feed. Excited about this bonus topic. It's all about how kids desperately want to be allowed to play by themselves outside without being bothered by their annoying parents, and why they're not allowed to do it. That is a segment's only for Slate Plus members, though, who also get bonus episodes on other Slate shows as well. They also get discounts to live shows. We're planning a set of live shows, so you can get a discount to that. They never hit the paywall on the Slate site. So please join up. You can subscribe to Slate Plus directly. Do it right now from the Political Gabfest show page on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or go to slate.com/gabfestplus, slate.com/gabfestplus. And we're not the only Slate podcast worth listening to this week. The Slate Money podcast has an episode on the fabulous wealth of Carrie Bradshaw. So Shayna Roth, our producer, Shayna Roth, is talking to Emily Peck to break down the Sex and the City revival, and just like that, and the fantasy of living rich in New York in a high tax bracket, and how great it is, and whether it's annoying to watch wealthy people be happy, or whether it's joyful to watch wealthy people be happy. That is all for our show today. Gabfest was produced today by Kevin Bendis because Shayna, had to talk about Carrie Bradshaw. Our researcher is Emily Ditto, back from vacation. It's so great to have you back, Emily. Our theme music is by They Might Be Giants. Ben Richmond is Senior Director for Podcast Operations. For Emily Bazelon, and still kind of my favorite Gabfest guest host, Juliet Kayyem, although she said so many mean things to me.
No, you were mean to her.
Oh, I said so many mean things to her. One or the other. One of the. Somebody was mean.
Wrong.
I know, but
we don't need to say who was mean. It's just enough to say that someone was mean.
Invite me again, and I'm just going to fortify. You're no longer going to waver on your guest host assessment. But I always have fun. Thank you so much.
Anyway, Gabfest listeners, we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for selling your car to Carvana. Here's your check.
Whoa, when did I get here?
What do you mean?
I swear it was just moments ago that I accepted a great offer from Carvana online. I must have time traveled to the future.
It was just moments ago. We do same-day pickup. Here's your check for that great offer.
It is the future.
It's the present, and just the convenience of Carvana. Sorry to blow your mind.
It's all good. Happens all the time.
Sell your car the convenient way to
Carvana.
Pickup times may vary and fees may apply.